Hey guys, in this episode we're giving away a Redgrassgaming bundle. We've got an Everlasting Wet Palette in there. We have the RGG 360 miniature holder. Awesome stuff. And we have the Kolinsky brushes sets with a size 2 and size 0s in there. Right, to be in with a chance of winning that, all you have to do is make sure you are subscribed to the channel. Remember, when we hit 95,000 subscribers, which we're getting closer to every day now, we're going to give away that limited edition Dulane miniature from the Imperial Garden Games Workshop. So make sure you're subscribed, hit like, share it with a friend to get us through the subscribers a bit quicker, and post a comment below. And if you come over to OnTableTop.com, create yourself a free account and post a comment there, you will double your chances of winning. Right? The industry's still moving. We've got a lot to talk about because the weekend starts now. Hi guys, and welcome to the Weekender. Lovely to see you all, gents. You're all looking sprightly and a little bit insane. Okay, later in this episode, we've got the 3D Printing is the Shit segment where we're going to be giving away another free 3D model, this time from the guys at 3D Art Digital. They have an incredible Kickstarter on the go at the moment, so we'll be talking a bit about that later in the show. And we're going to give away Gorntak. This is a little custom model for you guys in the OTT community. The link to it will be in the show notes, but stay tuned to later in the show and you'll get to see it.
Here he is.
This is him in all his gorgeousness. Yeah. I absolutely love it. I can only describe it as some sort of orc wandering monk dude with a stick that would crack your head in two. Love it.
And it's the Kickstarter we'll be talking about a little later, but stay tuned. Coming to that.
Yep. Okay, one final reminder then, if you can help us get to 95,000 subscribers, we are going to give away the exclusive Katachan Kernel miniature for Warhammer 40k. It's a bit of an experiment to see if we can help, get the distribution of the show to work through YouTube. So 95k, I think we are close to 2k off that, so reach out to all of your friends. If 5 of you did that, we'd be there. Right, it's that time for my favorite part of the show. It's where the little guy becomes the big guy, the most important segment of the week. It is Indie of the Week. Who picked it this week?
So this time it was me. And it was kind of based. We had a look at them last week when we had a look at some of their upcoming nights and stuff. But I was like, you know what? These miniatures are so cool. We need to go back and have a look at them again properly. So we're going to be delving into Claymore Castings and what they've been doing. Because, of course, I want to make sure that I ruin Jerry's bank balance as much as possible.
He's been a good boy. I've been picking him this stuff for years, and he has resisted thus far. I think he's about to crack.
I think we're going to break him on this one. Okay, right. Bring it up then. Claymore Castings. What? Yes. Oh, God, they're beautiful. Get it ready. Okay. Yeah. Is any of this stuff 15 mil?
No, it's all 28 mil.
So I'm safe then.
You are safe.
I'm safe for the moment. Okay.
But,
right. Yeah.
Yeah, so the cool thing about this stuff is that it goes into that kind of period of history that it seems to have had a little bit of a renaissance right now, and it's all a kind of 14th century style stuff, medieval, right in the middle of all that. Yep. Big, chunky armor, massive tabards, shields, swords, lances, that kind of thing.
I have loads of links here that you've given me, Ben, but I'm just going to go straight to the Facebook because
you can go straight to the Facebook
big,
page.
Glorious images all over the Facebook.
Glorious pictures all over there. So yeah. So these are some absolutely stunning miniatures from the collection.
Look
As you can see, they've all been painted up lovingly, as you can see. But yeah, so there's loads of stuff here for 14th century French and English. There's stuff for the rank and file, the men-at-arms. There's things for sergeants-at-arms. There's things for proper knights and nobles and barons. There's kings.
It's 100 Years' War, isn't it?
It is the 100 Years' War, yeah.
Oh, God. Ben, I'm going to kill you. I'm so into the 100 Years' War at the moment. I say I'm so into it. I am so in the process of getting into the 100 Years' War. So to bring you up to speed, so Rangers of Shadow Deep is the thing that I'm working through at the moment. I'm doing I wouldn't call it a review per se. I will come back to it, but I want to talk in depth about Rangers of Shadow Deep on a show in the future. But what I'm doing is I'm looking at Rangers of Shadow Deep because it's got solo play.
Oh, that model's so good. Anyway.
And anyway, I'm converting it to the time period of the 100 Years' War.
Look at that plinth. That's an amazingly horrible
Lloyd's favourite thing, plinths. Yeah.
So yeah, I've been 100 Years Warsing a lot. Oh, just look at that.
The thing that I really like about this spell is obviously it can be used for the historical period and playing 100 Years War, but as well as that, a lot of fantasy is based around the idea of playing stuff based on history, but with a twist. Yeah. So if you're going to be doing things you could use all of these guys to create yourself like a Bretonian army, for example. Maybe you wanted to do something for using town guard or city dwellers in a role-playing game. Use these guys as the sort of troops and the guys on the watch and that kind of thing. Maybe even if you're playing something like Game of Thrones in Westeros, these would be perfect for, pretty much all of the nations, depending on how you wanted to hang them up and design them.
And
this picture here really highlights one of the things I like most is such dynamic poses and stuff.
Yeah.
Most of my minis or crossbows are just standing like that or like that holding the thing. They're not on the ground underneath their shields and stuff.
Yeah. That's just
cool.
Amazing.
And yeah, as we were saying, this will allow you to play a lot of the sort of battles from that period, so Poitiers and all that kind of thing, Cressy and all that gubbins can be done with this. Oh, wait until you see some of the pictures coming up as well, because you get like proper little battle scenes and everything. Oh, it's so good.
It's not ordering any. Couldn't give a tinker's chance.
I was talking earlier with you guys, and I was saying how it's just made me want to do like a proper Robin Hood style skirmish thing. For no reason. I just want to pick up some Robin Hood miniatures and some of these guys here, some of these bowmen and stuff, put them together and just play something on the tabletop. So,
but the fascinating thing about that time period, right, was no, I'm still quite new to this. All right, so there'll be as much historical fact in this as I can give you. But Edward III. Wasn't that the king at the time? I think it was Edward III. Young buck. His dad had lost the throne to his ma's lover.
Is this the Longshanks one?
No. Longshanks. Yeah, Longshanks is either before that or after that.
Longshanks was a king.
Yeah, I think Longshanks is after. Anyway, but at that period in time, the Brits were basically French. Okay, we were owned by France.
So pre-Brexit then.
Ever since William the Bastard came in and took over the place, all of the nobility basically spoke French. It was only the plebs like us that spoke English. So all the battles and all of that movement was all taking place between England and France. Now, the French had the whole chivalry kind of thing going on. And then the young King Edward was a bit of a dude, right? He liked a bit of a scrap. He was doing what good kings did back in those days. He was getting the wars in and kicking ass and taking names, right? So what he did was he changed the tactics. Now, in battles up and around that time, it was convention that your your knights on their heavy cavalry, all just charged in on their horses. And he thought, that, not doing that. So his knights fought on foot. But more importantly, the English longbowmen. Now, For some reason, the Englishers still had the whole longbow thing going on.
I will say that if you are someone who's Welsh, you'll be going, hold on a second, I think you'll find all those men were Welsh, thank you.
I'm coming to that. I'm coming to that, okay? All you Welshers, I'm making you English for the moment. So, but for some reason, there was still a big tradition of longbow ism. Within the British mainland at that point, the English and the Welsh.
What do you mean for some reason? It's because the longbow was kicking arse and taking names.
No.
No?
This is the point with Cressay, Agincourt. This is the point where the longbow. They suddenly realized, oh, holy shit! There's a strategic advantage here. But you can only get that strategic advantage if you know how to use it. Because over in France, they were all using crossbows because you could fit any idiot out with a crossbow and they could fire it with some degree of accuracy. But what they didn't have was range. So if you had soldiers who were trained in the longbow, okay, now these guys had been utilizing longbows practically since they were children. So I'm still wondering, and I'm going to find out why the longbow, probably for hunting and the likes. So what happened was when Edward dispersed his foot knights. So he had rank of knights, or a section of knights, section of longbowmen, section of knights, section of longbowmen, section of knights, and the longbowmen basically just blanketed the sky with arrows.
Oh, that's so good. That
the range was incredible. So all those poor sods with their crossbows had to hide behind their shields because they were getting absolutely wankered by this.
Like this dude here.
Yes, he's basically in French. He's going, "Oh, they are killing us." So this all goes into those guys. The longbowmen and the knights then start marching forward, and as they come across dead bodies, they retrieve their arrows and punch them through visors of knights and into their eyeballs and their heads and stuff to kill them properly, right? And then they keep going. So this whole thing is the turning point where suddenly longbows really come into flavor as, oh my goodness, that extra range has completely changed tactically how we fight this battle. And also it changed it broke chivalry because it was in the past, the lords and stuff treated all of this as a game. War was like a game for those guys. They would fight. It didn't matter if the plebs got killed. That's just part of the game. But if you were in a shiny golden armor and stuff like that, you would never, ever, ever get killed. You would be ransomed, and that would be part of the game. So you could go to these battles knowing full well that you might get hurt, but you're not going to get killed. Them other scrubby bastards are there for that. So it broke chivalry because I think Edward was pretty ruthless and decided, yeah, we're just going to kill them all, bitches.
Well, the thing they always said about Agincourt was the sort of the scum of England were plucking the flower of French nobility with their arrows and stuff and things. So, yeah.
And that flower took some plucking, man.
But no, going back to the range, the models are fantastic. As you have seen from looking through the images and stuff, really, really nice models. Some top sculpting throughout the rest of the group.
It's 14th century French.
Yep.
14th century English.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Archers. Mm-hmm. Infantry and billmen. So good.
Yeah, so these are just more sort of like broken down smaller sections of the overall French and English set.
Men at arms, and they're pretty well priced too. Look at that.
Yeah. And one of the cool things, obviously, as well, is that because this is sort of the conflict between in Europe at this particular point, and specifically between the English and the French, a lot of the same arms and armor were switched between the two. So you can pick stuff up that may be considered English and still make it into a sort of a French-looking army.
The mounted knights are amazing. Look at that guy falling off his horse.
You can mix and match.
Lance as well there.
So you can mix and match anything you want on this, because even whenever Edward went over, his clothing was quarter English 3 lions. So 2 panels of 3 lions, red, and then 2 panels of blue with the, what do you call it? The
fleur de lis.
Fleur de lis. So he was there to present himself as this uniting force.
Because that was the thing. Because the English believed that they
France.
Yeah, he was. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because the English believed that they owned France and the French believed that they owned England. So
it was an incredible time period.
It gets even more fascinating when you see the dynamic between the Scottish and the French and how that all came together and sort of like the combat there between the French, the Scottish and the English, and the border disputes and all that kind of thing as well.
Well, you can't really blame the Scots. You can't blame the Scots because, the Scots have had a long tradition that any time England competes in any kind of sport, they'll always cheer on the other guy.
Oh, yeah.
So the fact that they've done that all through history just shows the consistency of those guys.
That takes commitment.
That and the fact that their cans of tenants always had pictures of ladies with flowery dresses on them. They're good blokes, the Scots. I have all the time in the world for those guys. Consistency and great decorative cans of beer.
And battered Mars bars, Warren. Battered Mars bars.
Battered Mars bars. Yes. Battered Mars bars. They're everything a fat guy could want.
This Matt Beckley sculpting conversation is taking an unusual tangent, hasn't it?
I'm just excited. I didn't know that he was going to pick the 14th century stuff, and it's just gorgeous. I would love to do it at 28 mil.
Didn't we see some 14th century Scots or something recently that could have been fighting against these guys in an episode or 2 ago?
It's just an incredible time period. It's really interesting how throughout the different periods of history you can start to zone in on those things that make it particularly special. Okay, with the Romans and stuff like that, you suddenly start to see this formation of ranks and the likes, and proper battle formations starting up, and you can zone in on that and really start to get to grips with it. Within the Crusades, you start to see interesting cavalry tactics and things like that taking place, where repeated cavalry charges and then coming back to a banner flag and changing horse and then going back in again. And then once again here now in the 14th century, you start to see how range and how the longbow itself was fundamental in changing how these battles were fought. And then suddenly scummy plebs like us could go in and actually kick some flowery French ass for a change. And it's and I think it's fascinating, and I love it. And I will just put a shout out there, okay? That if you're going to do it in 28 mil, this is the best stuff I've ever seen. If you're going to do it in 15 mil, for any of you folk that back Joan of Arc from Mythic Games, you are sitting on a gold mine of this stuff, because I've been unpacking it all here specifically to do it in 15 mil, and I have never seen a Kickstarter deliver so much awesome in the models. It was like, check this out. Look at that, Ben.
That is a lovely little house. Wow.
You gotta get a shop in there to sell cheeses as well.
Oh yes, but the name of the inn is when you're in, you're in. So it's
when I visited France, a couple of years ago, it was in Paris. Romain took us to a cheese shop, and I've never run out of a shop in my life.
You ran out of the shop?
Until this day, because Anna tried this cheese and literally ran out of the shop, and I was like, ha, dipstick, let's see. I tried it, and I did exactly the same thing. It was the most rotten foot tasting thing I ever experienced in my life, and it was expensive. Both of us outside washing our tongues with water. Rama's in on it.
clearly, you never met the Duchess of York. Then, you know, so if you haven't got used to that taste of foot in your mouth.
Nope.
Well, anyway, yeah, I'm finished talking shite now. We can go back to Claymore Castings.
But yeah, so obviously they've got loads of awesome stuff on there. They're starting to fire up production of a lot more models again, as we talked about last week and stuff. But yeah, if you really like this kind of period of history, obviously there's a lot of Footsore obviously doing their things with the Barons War and everything like that. And a lot of these ranges will all mish and mash together exceedingly well, including all the stuff obviously you get from Antediluvian Miniatures, which is that kind of Scottish range as well that Jerry's talked about before. But yeah, absolutely stunning miniatures that will all work particularly nicely together for this medieval period.
They're all sculpted by the same person.
They are all done by the same guy.
So that's Claymore Castings, what, .co.uk, is it?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And who's the sculptor, Jerry?
Matthew Beckley.
Matthew Beckley. So one very, very talented guy. Look, there's plenty of people out there that can sculpt a knight and can sculpt a knight on horseback. But the character that he has in those particular miniatures in that range are what completely set it apart for me. That's, and at 28 mil, that character makes such a difference because the model is at a size where you can truly appreciate the character of a model. When you start getting down to 15 mil and the likes, yeah, you can get a little bit of character in there, but it's starting to get small enough that it's mostly silhouettes and things. But at this scale, it just makes such an incredible difference. And you get a key.
Look at that. Look at that. Wow.
Handy for Saga.
Amazing stuff, that.
Oh, them shields are all transfers.
Oh, yeah.
They've got transfers and flags for everything as well.
All Little Big Man Studios. There's a shock.
Do you buy them direct, or do you buy them from Castings?
When I bought them in the past, I bought them from them because you can actually buy the purveyors as well if you go to Claymore Castings.
What's a purveyors?
It's the big shield that they prop up in front of them to hide behind. So the transfers are made to match the shields, so they're different sizes and shapes. So you get like lost in shape and upside down shields, and ones that have ridges in the center and that sort of thing. So I don't know if Little Big Man have them specifically on their site. I think they do, but if you're not picking up the miniatures but think the purveyors looks good for a fantasy unit or something like that, you can combo it. You can get the transfers to match the shields themselves.
There we go. Whole transfers and weapons section. There's other transfers there. And there must be weapons and stuff in here as well.
You would be
towards the end. You'll find them.
You would be mad to buy those miniatures and not buy the transfers because
you can hit them by hand if you wanted.
The effect on those shields completely makes those minis. I was about to say before the transfers came up, I said, look, it's a pity I will never be able to make them look that good. Well, I won't be able to make them look as good as what they have, but with those transfers, I can be damn sure that the shields are going to look good, and the shields just pop.
That was Flags of War we were just looking at.
War, yeah.
Let me get back to some of the transfers. Transfers must all be around the front. Hold on, well, there's some. Well, there's Scottish and English. Here we go.
There you go.
Let's have a look at these.
Flags of War is another excellent company. Flags of War, I find a little bit easier to use for some of the more peculiar shapes, because with Little Big Man, they've got an adhesive side that you need to stick down, whereas Flags are traditional water slide, so you can move it into position a bit easier. So those are all sticky, so give yourself a bit of wiggle room whenever you're cutting them out and you're fine. But yeah, they are lovely.
And on that Flags of War stuff, if it's traditional decal, you could use the solvents and stuff like that to take away the carrier sheet and stuff at the end. Could you, like a microsol or a microset?
I only use microsol or microset if the surface it's going onto is so irregular that it requires it.
Right. Okay.
So you're still easier just going gloss varnish and then a gloss varnish over the top and just sandwich it, just do a laminate. And it removes the shine.
Yeah. Okie dokie. Right. if I wasn't excited before, I'm going to get excited now because I'm about to try a new type of mat. Not new to a lot of folk, but new to me, and one that I've wanted to try for a long time. Okay, guys, so in tonight's Warren Meets Matt, I'm going to do something just a little bit different. So this is a mat from Geek Villain. You can find them at geekvillain.co.uk. This is a fabric mat, which is printed on felt. Now, Geek Villain reached out to us and sent me a sample of a mat a while ago, and I took the opportunity to try it out and to feed back to them. So they've taken on board some of my thoughts and suggestions on that, and this is the result. Okay, so it's a 6x4 mat, but it's sized slightly over 6x4, and I'll explain to you why in a minute. It's printed in a really nice resolution. So you can see some of the grass details here. This particular one is called the El Alamein mat. So as you can see, it's quite scrubby with a dirt track running through it. And it's printed on a fairly dense felt kind of a material. Now the beauty of it is that I don't really need to measure it because I know that it is over 6x4 because it needs at least about an inch or so across. The track itself is about 2.5 inches across, and from that side it's 23 inches. It's on a fairly heavy material. The beauty of this material is when you get it, it comes all folded up like that, but as soon as you put it down, it just goes beautifully flat, just as such. There's no creases or anything that I can see on that would that give it away. Let's talk about terrain. So I have a few hills. Now this is where these kinds of mats really shine, okay? So you could, if you wanted, put your terrain down like that. However, you could grab yourself some polystyrene and a knife and carve it up and not worry about all this extra detail, and instead put the hills underneath. So let's just try that to see how this will work, because that, for me, is where these mats really come to life. So let me just put that down, okay, and then just give it a go. And this is why I fed back to them about oversizing the mat. Check that out. Now you have these beautiful hills and gradients actually built in to the mat itself. And because it is slightly overscaled, you still end up with a full 6x4 playing area. So if you want to try and, and create something that has, there's nice kind of contours and curvatures, like it just works. It just works really, really well. And I think it's lovely. I think it really takes a mat like this and just brings it to life. This starts to look like, it's a sense of realism you would not normally get from the likes of a PVC mat, or even one of the kind of the neoprene mats. This is something you can only do with mats of this kind and mats of this particular kind of material. So that is the El Alamein mat. Okay, give me 2 seconds. I'm going to fold it up. Going to leave the hills in place. I'm going to throw on another mat called the Winter is Coming mat. And that's this one. So let's check this out and see how it looks with the same hills in the same location. So this is it folded straight out of the bag. Okay, so let me get it. Whoa. Okay, and a quick layout to tidy this bad boy up. And here we go. Lay it down nice and flat. Give it a quick rub just to get the contours and all in place. There. And once again, it just takes those hills and contours and it just brings it to life. I just really, really like it. And all it takes is a wee rub of the hand and any of that creasing that you might have seen just goes away. Love it. Absolutely love it. One of the other things I love about this, storage. So easy to store. You get 2 or 3 of these, stick them in a drawer, bam, you're done. With the neoprene mats, although they are my favorite, and probably still are my favorite, they are taking up just a little bit more storage. But hey, compared to the gaming tables that we used to build, believe me, none of these things take up a lot of storage, but if you are tight on space, I highly recommend this. So that is the battle mats from geekvillain.co.uk.
Coming to you from the center of Northwestern Europe. Covering board games, war games, card games, and all that you love. It's the news.
Right, yeah, so first little bit of news for us to be diving into, because things are still happening, as we talk about on the show. So first little bit of news comes from the guys at Parabellum Wargames, and this is for a bunch of pre-orders that have been shown off for the World of Conquest. So everyone knows Last Argument of Kings, which is their sort of, I think it's 35 mil scale, isn't it? I think that's the majority of their forces. Yeah. Mm-hmm. They're slightly bigger mass battle game. So we got to see some really awesome miniatures for this. So we've got the Drill Master here for the 100 Kingdoms. They are an attachment to some of the new 100 Kingdoms units. And they can be taken in multiple incarnations on the battlefield so that you can give benefits and stuff to the different forces on the tabletop. You've also got the Lineage Highborn here, which I think is really awesome. And this is a really this is a new character for the Spires. So the Spires, if you've seen the stuff from Conquest before, are slightly sort of cloned and bioengineered warriors for use on the battlefield. So they're all designed for a specific purpose. But we haven't really seen a lot of the upper echelons of the Spires force until now. And this is one of those characters. You've got the Lineage Highborn here, who is actually 75 millimeters tall, so it's a pretty massive miniature.
Oh, yeah.
So they're massive, giant warriors that are excellent at taking down heavily armored troops. So they have big, huge weapons. As you can see, you've got the spear there on that particular Highborn model. And again, it shows a very different sort of approach to the Spire and their sort of aesthetic on the tabletop. So it's not just all sort of like bone craft and that kind of thing and flesh melded together. Something a little bit more flamboyant in the mix for the characters here, as you can see.
I like the idea that she's trying to blend in with human kingdoms.
Yes. Yeah. We've also got some units that are sort of tied to the Lineage Highborn, and this is the Avatara. So these again are massive, huge miniatures. So again, they're around the sort of 75 millimeters tall, big sort of giant models for you to include in your army. Again, their sort of benefit is sort of worked into the idea of dealing with heavily armored troops. They have a lot of sort of abilities and cards and such like that built into their sort of their army stats for you to allow them to do that. Again, really awesome, interesting aesthetic for these as well. Sort of drawing a little bit more on sort of Asian sort of influences, which I think is really cool. You've got sort of a little bit of like the Chinese, Japanese thing moved in, sort of mixed in with the models and how they look. Absolutely stunning. You can see the kind of like basic bioengineering to their bodies underneath and then the armor over the top of it, which I think is a really nice mix. And it sort of adds a little bit of point of difference to the force as well, which I think is always good, especially when you've got something that could effectively all be painted in the same way as the Spires. It's always nice to have a little bit of diversity in there as well, which is really good.
I like that, yeah.
Yeah, and following on from those, because the sculpting is awesome and all those miniatures great, there's also some new support packs which are coming out for all the different kingdoms that exist at the moment. So you've got the 100 Kingdoms, the Spires, the Dweghom and the Nords. Each are fully fledged armies that you can go and pick up loads of characters and troops and elites and all that kind of thing for. But this support pack comes with that little sort of card box there, as you can see, which is very nice for storing all your bits and bobs. It then comes with objectives and scenarios on the little cards. And there's also cards which have all the sort of faction-specific spells on them, as well as artwork, which is sort of around that spell as well. So if you want to have all your spells laid out in front of you and feel like a proper mage at the tabletop, then they've got some really awesome little options there for you to go and pick up, which is really cool.
Nice.
On top of the support pack, another sort of thing for you to dive in and pick up and read is the Conquest Companion. So this is a new book that has also been released in June. So all of these releases are coming in June, sort of early to mid-June. And this is a collection of all of the updated rules and errata and FAQs that you need to play the game. But on top of it just being like a rules reference guide and sort of a refresher for it, it also contains loads and loads of extra lore for all the different factions. So one of the big things that Parabellum Wargames have always done is try to rebuild this amazingly diverse and interesting world with lots of really fascinating stories in it and interesting characters. This takes a lot of the stuff that wasn't in the core book and sort of expands on that and builds on it and adds lots more into the mix. So even if you don't particularly, even if you're thinking, oh, maybe I won't really get that because it's only got a couple of rules, I'll use the internet and the digital options to do it from the Parabellum Wargames website. This comes with all the fluff as well. So there's some really nice stuff in there to read, which is really good.
Nice.
So yeah, really awesome stuff coming in June from the guys at Conquest. We also have Conquest on our website, on our web store as well. So if you're interested,
that's true. That's true. You can go to
all that stuff. Then you can go and pick up the big 2-player box set.
Buy merch.
Yeah, buy merch. Buy all the merch. We've got loads of stuff on there for all the different factions. Dive in and check out.
If you're interested in a 2-player starter box, you can come in here and obviously with some pictures and stuff. But we also have an unboxing of it as well.
We do, yes.
So you can get an idea of what's actually in it.
Yeah.
Cool.
It's amazing stuff. The models, I'm just like, I am so into the 100 Kingdoms stuff. I'm telling you, I'm going to get a Conquest virtual event or something running this year. Because we were ready to pull the trigger on doing a Conquest boot camp, and then obviously COVID-19 decided you and your Conquest boot camp. That's not going to happen. I'm just looking at the running order now to wait for the message to be typed in.
Don't worry, we've already been filling it in. So.
But anyway, we're going to do something virtual. I'm going to make it happen because the game just is. If you'd seen the castles and stuff that we had been 3D printing for it, it just gets my juices going.
It is very nice indeed, yeah.
I'll be recruiting among you lot. I'll be recruiting among you. Tell me about Infinity.
Yeah, so as well as some really lovely miniatures for Conquest, we've got some really lovely miniatures for Corvus Belli's Infinity as well. So even though the coronavirus thing is obviously shutting down a lot of stuff, the guys at Corvus Belli are still getting some releases out every month. And so for the month of May, we've got a bunch of new releases coming. So we have the Ninja there, which is pretty awesome. So if you're looking for a stealthy operative to throw into your team, then you've got a really nice option there. Obviously, ninjas are very cool. How do you make them cooler? You put them in a sci-fi setting, give them mega awesome armor and glowing weapons, and of course they're going to be brilliant.
Yeah, and give them a top of a roof to perch on, to look down on everybody.
And an endless roof to perch on. It's perfect, yeah. So it's very good.
It's probably in Teo camo, so nobody can see him anyway.
Yes, very true, yeah. And as well as the Ninja there, we've also got the Shasvasti Haiduk. So this is a new sniper for you to use in your games alongside the Combine and stuff. So if you're looking to throw a really awesome new character into the mix who's going to try and control the battlefield, get you all your AROs and that kind of thing, this is a very, very good choice for you to throw into the mix as well. Going down the slightly stealthy route, but in a different way. Beyond that as well, there's also some new stuff for those people that are playing things like Code 1 and will also take things to the next level, but also use these within their normal games as well. So this is 2 support packs for both the Pan-Oceania and the Yujing factions in the game. And I can read exactly what's in these in 1 second. In the Pan-Oceania support pack, you get a Machinist, a Trauma Doc, and then 2 of the PAL bots. So if you like sort of anime manga stuff, you've got some nice options there. And then for the Yujing, you've got more or less the same. You've got a Mech Engineer, Zhanshui Yixing, and then also 2 of the Yaozhou, who are their little tiny bots as well. So if you like both the Pano and the Yixing, you've got some really nice options at that point too. Finally, for their sort of releases for May, we've also got the O12 Action Pack, which kind of benefits the faction because they're kind of cool and action-packed. So if you like your sort of security forces and laying down the law within the world of Infinity, then you've got the entire of the O12 to go and pick up there and basically get yourself an entire set of models to get started in the game with, which is very, very cool. Whether or not you're playing Code 1 or you're playing the traditional Infinity rules as well, they work for both, which is really good. Beyond that, and looking into next month, there's also going to be some new stuff coming in the pipeline for Code 1 specifically. So they had Operation Kaldstrom, which came out and has sort of been going out to people now. And Beyond Kaldstrom is the next box that's coming out. It's going to come with 2 sets of additional models for both factions, so that effectively, once you've played everything you can do from the original Operation Kaldstrom box, you can get this expansion box, and it comes with rules and 3 models for each faction that will allow you to take things to the next level. So it's a really easy dive in, pick this up, and start playing the game with a little bit more points on the tabletop, expand your battlefield a little bit further, and see what you want to do with it. Obviously, you've got options for both the Pano and the Yixing in that collection.
Did that all come out this month, or is coming out next month, or what?
So this stuff for Code 1, so these particular things we're looking at here, so Beyond Kaldstrom and the Infinity Code 1 rulebook, they're coming out in June. So that's the other models are for May, these ones are for June. So,
wow, talk about packing them out.
Yep, exactly.
Fantastic, great.
Yeah, and obviously when it comes to everything that's happening with Infinity and Code 1, Corvus Belli have said obviously that they're going to be supporting both of these going forward. Code 1 isn't just kind of like an introduction to the game and that's it with sort of, cut down rules. It's also a fully fledged game in of itself that would be really good for tournament play and that kind of thing as well. So it's a really nice option. And as I said, that rule book, so the printed rule book is going to be out in June too. But you can access a lot of stuff through PDFs and quick start guides and everything over on the Code 1 website and everything. So we'll have that link down below as well.
I can't wait to get into that.
That stuff's just amazing though.
It is really, yeah.
It never. I say this every time we see Infinity releases. It never ceases to amaze me just how cool they manage to make these things every single time they release.
Yeah.
There's always something catchy about them.
One of the cool things about the stuff that they've been releasing specifically around the idea of Code 1 is kind of flowing into the idea of it being sort of almost narrative releases, because a lot of the models come out with sort of environmental gear to suit the surroundings. So you'll notice them, they've got their power armor on, but then there's like fur coats or fur lining around things. So it's a really nice way to sort of build on the setting and sort of carry on that narrative from that original Kaldstrom box into whatever you're going to do next, which I think is really cool. So,
yeah, it is. It's incredible. Marvel Crisis Protocol. Okay, we have a couple of new previews have come out from them.
Yes. So slated for release sort of in June, July, hopefully this year. We're going to have some tiny, tiny models in the form of Ant-Man and the Wasp. So if you like your Marvel films and you like things to be in quite literal, true scale to the real world, then you can pick up both Ant-Man and the Wasp, who have been photographed here lovingly around a fire hydrant somewhere in America. But yeah, some really awesome looking new models for both Ant-Man and the Wasp. They have already previewed a little hunt on Facebook that these particular characters will have cards that talk about them in their miniature size and also in regular size. So hopefully, fingers crossed, we've not seen any pictures yet, we're going to get versions of these models where they're, proper 40 mil as well, to go along with all the other different characters.
The other thing is that they can go super big too.
Yeah, they could go Goliath, obviously. So if you wanted to have him on the tabletop, then that would be pretty awesome as well. Maybe you just go and find an action figure or something, or like one of the statues and throw that into the mix. That would be great. There's loads of them out from like Sideshow Collectibles and all that kind of thing. So go.
It would work well for the scenarios that they've been releasing where it's 1v many. So you've got Thanos. You could therefore have Giant Man just kicking his way to health and happiness.
Yeah,
love it.
Because Giant Man was his sort of big version. Goliath was the other superhero that fought alongside him, wasn't it? Yeah. I remember my films now.
In other news, Whiz Kids have come out and tickled me in places where I love to be tickled.
You see, I normally put in things just to make Jerry and Lloyd happy, but I also put some stuff in to make you happy as well, Warren. So this is the new Warlock, so with a capital L in the middle, tiles and terrain for dungeon delving from WizKids. So as a lot of people will know, they've been working on their pre-painted stuff and also their non-pre-painted stuff for Dungeons and Dragons and Forgotten Realms, all these kind of, Pathfinder and all these other games and stuff that are role-playing based. They've now turned their attention to making some pre-painted terrain, which still comes out in plastic, as you can see here. So there are two sort of base sets for this. So you've got a dungeon tile set and a town and villages set. And that comes with a bunch of floor pieces, as you can see in these pictures here, as well as the wall sections. The floor pieces can be flipped over. So they've got both a stone and a wooden floor. So you can mix and match things if you wanted to, which is really cool. Other really interesting little design decisions with this set that I think was really awesome from looking at the press releases and stuff. The walls have been purposely made smaller so that they're easy to game within. So you'll notice that they're a little bit smaller than you'd imagine them to be to the like normal walls. So you don't have to like put your fingers in to try and get your models moving around. It's all about the same size. Then interior walls have also been made thinner so that there's more space for your characters to effectively stand in each of the different spaces. So there's no problems about, oh, can I really stand here? Or my model's falling over and that kind of thing. As well as that, they've also talked about the idea that they've made the walls slightly sort of tweaked so that you can actually fit bases next to the walls and underneath them. So they've got like a slight angle to them so that they work quite nicely with the way you want to place models, which I think is really nice.
Yeah, you can just about see a little lip. Just
yeah,
right
there's like a little tiny lip at the bottom.
If I go over to this one to see the way there's just a little hump. In the plasterwork where it seems to just dip in.
Yes, yeah. As well as that, all of these can be put together in sort of modular fashion. So they use what's like a locking open lock system. I think it's called the open lock system. So you've got little tiny prongs, little tiny forks that you click into each of the different pieces, and then you all bundle them together and use them as you want. As well as that, you can see here that we're looking at some of the additional set dressing and terrain options that they've got for the tabletop as well. So they've got things like tavern stuff. They've got dungeon delving things. So they've got chests and barrels and tables and bookcases and fireplaces and statues and all that kind of thing. Perfect for those kind of dungeon masters that want to fill their dungeons with things and then make their players open everything and then throw a mimic at them when they least expect it, which I think is the best thing to do ever.
It's easy just to have them all be mimics.
Exactly.
One bit of kit in this dungeon that isn't a mimic.
That's exactly the way to do it.
Mimic roulette, yeah.
Oh, I love that.
Some really nice models there.
I can't wait to try and get my hands on some of that stuff. I just think it's great.
I hope it has a decent distribution, because we've noticed that WizKids have some great stuff, but finding it in Europe
is
practically
difficult.
impossible.
So I've heard that you can pre-order it right now in America, and European distributors are allowed to take orders for it. So I would imagine they're going to be looking at seeing what the kind of numbers are, and then hopefully you'll be able to get it over here. I know a lot of times people have to buy things in quite a bulk when it comes to the WizKids stuff, in terms of like the heroes and things we've seen before. So maybe we'll see what happens on that front. But it is hopefully going to be available quite soon this summer, and it does look very cool.
I think it
was the doors also open, by the way. They're not like closed or open. They actually swing open. Cool.
I'll just float the idea out there. But if any of you Americans want to send me some of this stuff, you can get your hands on it. That would be lovely.
I think the flippable floor was a class idea.
I love that. I absolutely love that. I like look, it's pre-painted. That's a win. They've thought about the realities of playing within this kind of stuff. You know, the lower walls and things. Any of us who have ever played with Hearst Arts will have seen this. You know, you've built your first ones. You built the walls so high that you're going like that. It's great, and I reckon they'll be pretty robust as well. You know, and it's talk about a fast track way for throwing out some dungeon stuff. It could be so good.
Just to give you an idea of the sort of contents, the towns and villages set comes with, at its basic level, 24 of the little tiny warlock tiles. Then you get a whole bunch of walls and corners and all that kind of thing, and it comes in at around $99 for one of the sort of big original sets. And then each of the sort of sort of smaller packs of the furniture comes in around $50. So even though, it's slightly more expensive, but it's all pre-painted, it's all ready to go and all that kind of thing as well. And I think it's a nice alternative to some of the other ranges that are out there, because everyone would love Dwarven Forge, obviously, but it's a little bit expensive. So
I will step up now and say I take back what I said to my American friends. It's not that I think it's expensive, but it's a bit beyond what I'm worth. So it's I completely understand. Yeah,
I thought it would be a good idea to share the pricing on that.
Yes, so I'm glad you did, Ben. I'm glad you did.
Yeah, the pricing may not be for everybody, but just that time saving of the box.
Well, look,
smell it all, see what it's like, slap it on the table. Wow.
The thing that I was thinking about this is that obviously it's different for everybody. But if you're like primarily a role-playing person and that's what you like, the effective expenditure of your hobby is the books, and that's about it. So if you as a group want to join together, help your dungeon master out and buy some bits and pieces for it, including monsters, heroes, and that kind of thing, then that's where your hobby aspect lives effectively.
There is another side to this as well. Like any of us could very easily blow £100 on paints and primers and things like that, before you, and that's just to paint the bloody things.
Like even if you're casting it yourself, like the Hearst Art stuff, you buy the molds, you buy the materials, then you've got your time, and then like Warren says, your paints. You could rack that up pretty quickly.
Oh, easy. Now you would say to yourself with the Hearst Art stuff, yeah, but I can make as much of it as I want. But the reality is, you could make as much of it as you can be bothered. There will come a point where you are, I don't want to make any more. It's slapping the table to get the bubbles out of the plaster.
It's the durability of it though as well. This is plastic stuff, isn't it?
It's all plastic.
So you can drop it. Whereas if you're casting with plaster or even resin, if you drop your stuff a lot of the time, it's game over, man. It's game over.
Yeah. And plaster casting is expensive if you're trying to do it right as well. I remember whenever me and Lloyd were trying to create a vibration table, and we screwed Jubilee clips down, and he got this, what was it called, like a rampant rabbit massager or something like that there. And we put it into the Jubilee clips, and it nearly shook the table to death, man. It was a dangerous thing.
Like that?
But, yeah. Pricey. It's weird though. It's the weirdest massager I've ever seen, because like little bollocks and all like spin around and yeah.
In the end, we just put it on our backs and called it a day.
I held it to his back, and then he held it to mine.
Yeah,
brothers.
That was just a good night.
Spiders with lasers, Ben. Tell me about spiders with lasers.
Okay, so the next is a little bit of a small preview for what's coming up from Wargames Atlantic. Now, obviously, we know they have done some fantastic plastic kits in the past for Persians and sci-fi realms and Dark Age Irish Celts and all that kind of thing as well. But they're now turning their attention to that one thing that every dungeon master needs in their army, and that is giant spiders. And so they're going to be coming up with a new multi-part plastic kit for the spiders. So make sure that Justin's not looking at the screen right now.
If anybody's posting anything to the studio, make sure it's giant spiders.
Giant spiders.
This is your chance.
And this is exactly the kind of thing that you need in Rangers of Shadow Deep as well, Warren, just to point it out, because you obviously need the swarms of spiders in some of the missions. But there you go.
I am already there, man. I am already there. I have grown to fall in love with Wargames Atlantic because they have demonstrated to me that they are truly bonkers. they are truly bonkers. The stuff that they're coming out with, every single one of them is you're going, oh, I didn't realize I needed that.
And that's where that's where the next bit of this comes in, because as well as this set containing all the stuff you need to make fantasy giant spiders to use in your war games and role-playing games, there's also options to give them armor and laser guns.
Oh!
So if you scroll down just a little bit further, Lloyd, you'll see them. There we go. So that is the artwork. There were some renders, but they're very, very tiny. So I didn't want to show
who that is. You know what that is. Jerry, that's Horse Heresy. That's the Mega Arachnid.
Yes, yeah. You could go back in time for some 40k.
Please, I've got to make a request now. Please, Wargames Atlantic. If I'm not too late, can you create fantasy saddles and fantasy stowage to put onto them as well, so that we can ride those bad boys.
Funny,
our minis can ride those bad boys.
They are working on Halfling Cavalry as one of their next plastic kits as well, so potentially.
Yes.
And maybe some bits and pieces you could throw together for that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. If you can get me saddles, 28 mil scaled saddles and 15 mil scaled saddles, if it's at all possible, and just chuck a couple of saddles in there as well. Yeah.
Who knew that riding spiders would be one of the aspirations of the show?
Oh, man.
The goblins have been doing it for decades. So.
Mega arachnids, man. That's an amazing opportunity for some Horus Heresy stuff, isn't it?
Mm. It is very much so.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm very excited by that.
Yeah.
Right. Time to talk about metal Cushites.
Yes. So I'm you know what? I'm going to throw over to Jerry for this one, so he can talk about some cool, because he posted up the pictures of the original resins, and they look very nice. But now Footsore have come out with their new Cushites in metal for Mortal Gods, and I shall let Jerry take it away.
So obviously the resins that I posted a while back, whenever they start doing any of these miniature ranges now, they prototype them in resin before they do their masters, and then they sell them. But this is now the range fully available for all those who wanted a bit of a more reasonable buy-in and something they can chuck around. So set up for Mortal Gods, which also means they're handy for Mortal Gods Mythic. Whenever it comes out, if you fancy a bit more fantasy with your historic, it's the Kingdom of Kush, or the Kushite Empire. So it's North Africa, part of Egypt, Sudan, that sort of thing. They eventually got sort of lumped together by the Romans into being called Numidians, but we've got a range of heroes and infantry coming. And as you can see, they do look absolutely superb. I particularly like, here he is, the Kushite priest with lion, and I can only assume that at no point is that lion going to turn on that priest, despite the fact he's wearing his dad. That is always all day long going to be perfectly fine. The character especially in the likes of the priest, and there's a tribal chieftain, there he is, I think are absolutely stunning, and really shows that you have this almost, history is stranger than fantasy in some cases. When you look at some of the tribes that you would find in Africa, you wouldn't look twice if you've seen these in a Indiana Jones pulp style 1920s game, and equally well they work for the ancients as well. So you could be playing Mortal Gods with these, or you could be dropping them into something like Congo and playing those sort of 1920s pulp explorer games, or even 7TV. They work equally well in many backgrounds.
You could be discovering an island that's never been discovered before in your role playing game, and use these guys on that island and stuff as well.
Just to butcher your way through people.
Let me just get this. Right in my mind now. Okay, so the Kushite Empire.
Yes.
I knew that this had rang a bell with me. Do you remember my story about was it the Assyrians and the Israelites
and the spider attack?
Yeah. Oh no. That was the Crusades. No, it was the angel of death came down and killed 250,000 Assyrians in the middle of the night. Egypt at that time, I had mentioned, was kind of run by Ethiopians.
Yes.
Okay? That may well have been the Kushites, because that Kushite Empire, if what I'm looking at is correct, stretched from Egypt down that East Africa, down through Sudan, and it looks like it goes down into near Ethiopia.
I can't remember where Ethiopia
I would like to know more, is what I'm saying. So, because the miniatures, I was not expecting that. They look awesome.
That's the cool thing about I think what Footsore have done with this is that they've taken what would effectively have been a game focused around the idea of Greeks versus Greeks, that interstate warfare, and then Persians at the same time, and Ant-Man, apparently. But also,
why are we looking at Ant-Man, Lloyd?
but also doing things a little bit differently and throwing in other forces from around the same time that would have interacted with the Greeks and that kind of thing as well, and the Persians. Yeah. And so it's really nice to have this really nice different aesthetics, because you've obviously got the heavily armored Greeks, and not so obviously in their big bronze armor with their massive shields and that kind of thing. And then you've got the slightly more colorful and vibrant looking Kushites here, as you can see, with their body paint and all the stuff that they've got in there with their animal pelts and everything as well. It's really, really cool.
And because the way they're moving around and doing these, and not just focusing on it always has to be Greek and Persian, that they can expand out into these other kingdoms. I would love to see things like, you could see the Canaanites, the Israelites, sea peoples, that sort of thing. It depends what way they want to, what directions they want to push it into.
You could probably wangle these guys into Clash of Spears as well.
Oh, do you know what else you could wangle them into?
Some fashion.
Some kind of pulpy thing, because they're Temple of Doom, Indiana Jones Temple of Doom type stuff.
Like I was saying, you could discover an island that had been previously undiscovered, and these guys could come out and try and bow you down when you're getting off your boat.
King Kong. Yeah, it's like that more recent one, Kong Island or whatever it was. Good movie. I enjoyed it.
I've seen it.
Oh, it's 1970s, man. I love it. It's Kong in Vietnam. It's awesome. It's really good. So
speaking of primates, they've got some primates coming out as well.
Have they?
Yeah, so there's a band of baboons as well.
Also led by one of the priests, because apparently priests spend their time feeding animals and then setting them on people. And this is World Gods has this semi. It's not as mythical as Saga is. It's slightly more grounded, but they do play up the fact that, you know, if they were spoken to have had these sort of animals with them, then you can be fairly certain you'll see them cropping up in interesting places when you're playing. So
baboons are ferocious.
They scare me more than the troops.
Yeah.
Scare you more than the lion.
On the topic of movies, did any of you manage to catch the latest Jumanji?
No.
I haven't seen the newest new one, no.
Well, the newest new one has a baboon attack in it. It's awesome. It is awesome. Yeah.
Cool.
So Kushites and baboons sold.
Oh, I did see a video on YouTube of a monkey riding a bicycle who then jumps off the bicycle, grabs a kid, and drags her up the street because he wants to steal her and eat her. You don't see that every day. Don't cut that in. It's too horrific.
Is it really horrific, is it?
Oh, it's creeped me right out. He literally, on a wee bike, jumps off the bike. The bike was flying, grabs the little girl. She's flat on her face, and he's dragging her up the street, and she's like,
wow.
Freaked.
Yeah.
And are you sure he was going to eat her?
Well,
Did he say that?
Well, the monkey don't talk. Next to be thinking monkeys ride bikes, for goodness sakes.
It might have been her bike. Maybe
no, it was too small. This monkey was tiny, but really strong. This baby was like twice its size, but he was strong.
Oh, dear. Wow.
Love it.
In Indonesia. I'm just watching it now. It's amazing.
That's it. That's monkey business for you.
Right. Footsore USA. Are going.
Oh, I need to stop watching that. You should all go and look at that now.
There's one for XLBS. Okay, Footsore USA, Ben. Big ass modern vehicles.
Yeah, so Footsore USA, run by Tim over there, has done some really awesome stuff on the moderns side of things. Big into things like Skirmish Sangin and Spectre operations and that kind of thing as well. And Radio Dish Dash, I think, is the other one, the other big games over there. But obviously, big, awesome moderns collection, and that needs big, awesome vehicles. And so two got released quite recently. So the first of these, as you can see there, is the Cougar MRAP, which is as big as it looks there. It is a monster of a vehicle. I did a little bit of Googling to see it. I think it might be slightly bigger in this than it is in real life, but it is astronomically huge compared to other battlefield vehicles. It's effectively a tank rather than it being just a normal 4-wheeled vehicle. Sorry, 4 or 6-wheeled vehicle, which I think it's 4 wheels. I can't really see the one. Yeah. But yes, big gun on the back, heavy armor, good as a little bit of a sort of like mobile command center, can transport your troops around as well. But if you don't want to play around with the Cougar, then you could also play around with the equally massive Russian.
Everybody wants to play around with a Cougar, man.
There's also the equally massive Russian Ural Typhoon, which is the model you can see there, which is also absolutely massive. Comes with a massive gun on the back, has room in the back for your command center and your troops and everything to transport around. So if you're looking for some big stuff to include in your objective and scenario-based games on the tabletop, because that's one of the cool things about playing moderns is sort of working on the idea of like a games master and narrative and scenarios and things, then some really big, awesome new miniatures from those guys. And they have, as I said before, a big moderns range where they've done lots of stuff for the Americans and the Russians and a lot of the Europeans as well. So it's well worth going in to check them all out and stuff as well. But yeah, awesome. Nice vehicles.
Right, that wraps up your news. Now,
hopefully what? Let's hear what Jerry had to say.
Hopefully I'll be having a chat with Tim in the next week anyway, to see what they're going to be coming up with, because before they were Footsore US, it was actually SASM, so Special Artisan Services Miniatures, which is where this huge range has come from. So he's still working away as well. Andy is working on this side of the Atlantic, focusing more on the ancients and historics. Tim in the US is going more for the ultra moderns.
Nice. Many of us are trapped at home with only ourselves to play with. So, as a public service, we decided to get our best man on the job. The guy with the most experience of playing with himself of anybody I know. And that is our Justin. That and the fact that he hasn't had airtime in a long time. So we need to show you that he is actually still alive and he hasn't been dragged off by a small monkey that caught him on a bicycle. So we've set him down with the guys from Firelock who have released some Solo Wargaming rules. And we've gotten them to give us a chat about how they're putting together Solo Wargaming and how it all is panning out. So Justin, take it away, my man.
Did you win one of our prizes? Find out on our prize claim center over at OnTableTop.com. Here we list all our previous prizes and those who have won. If you see your username, fill out the form to claim your prize. All prizes must be claimed within 30 days. Congratulations if you're a winner!
Hello everybody and welcome. I have been joined by my buddy Mike from Firelock Games to have a bit of a chat about what they're doing with Solo Gaming for Blood and Plunder. Mike, welcome buddy. It's good to see you.
Hey Justin, how are you?
I'm good. I'm doing the whole lockdown thing, being antisocial and stuff, so pretty normal.
The apocalypse is treating you well then.
Oh, it is. You know, everybody's just doing their thing. We're still getting packages out to folks, which is making me happy. So all good. What about you guys? How's Firelock holding up stateside?
Yeah, we're doing pretty good. Thankfully, we're we're continuing to ship orders, and our postal service is a little bit of a disaster, but we're getting the orders out. They're taking a long time to get there, but they're getting out.
Yeah, so they're going into the system. It's just the system's the issue then.
Oh yeah. It's typically U.S. Postal Service is typically not the greatest thing on a regular and during regular time. So during the apocalypse, it's obviously a little more chaotic. Yeah. But nothing too crazy. I don't think anybody's been waiting more than like a week for a package. So
yeah. I mean, like over here, the mail's not too bad, but we're still doing some international postage. So I think the worst I've had is Denmark's post. I don't like Denmark's post because they actually destroyed one of the parcels that went to Denmark and lost like a couple of items from the box, and it was just me going, okay, well, better get those out to him.
Yeah, well, that's gonna happen. We get lots of whenever we do our Kickstarters, there's always a box. Whenever we're shipping pallets, it never fails. There's always a box that had a forklift go right through it.
Yeah, guaranteed.
I don't understand how it's like a thing. They just gotta like mark it, like, hey,
Yeah, this is why you need to order like one extra layer of everything.
That's true. I'm gonna put like a ghost layer of explosives in it. No, that might backfire.
No, what you do is you do your ghost layer, but anything that survives from that's samples you send out to reviewers.
There you go.
All right, so Solo Gaming, Mike, what are you guys doing with it?
So for Solo Gaming, to be honest, Solo Gaming is something that I've always I've always thought was kind of just more for people who didn't really have a good local community, maybe live in a small town, don't have a lot of other player options. You know, and not something I ever really considered trying until I was basically forced into a small town community of just me and my house with my family who don't play games. So I kind of started to, when I was playtesting Blood and Plunder, I would occasionally just play by myself, just run things together and just, you know, see how it ran. So, and it was surprisingly not as bad as I thought it would be. But so then when I started working on the solo rule, I downloaded a bunch of other game solo rules to see how they did it. A lot of them were a little involved, right? Like a lot of stuff to check. Like I'm finding myself rolling 1,000 dice or pulling tons of cards. You know, it just seemed like a long time to get a resolution.
Yeah, it's engineering an AI system without a computer.
Exactly. Yeah. So I was trying to think. We have in Blood and Plunder we have the convenience of a card-based activation, so it makes it a lot easier. So doing that, I was able to get something that I was pretty happy with. It wasn't too complex, right? So that it's really my first solo gaming experience because I read those other systems and kind of just tried like a turn, you know, see how it kind of rolls. But the developing it and then playing it was the first real experience I had. So so far the people who are playing it seem like they like it, and for me, it's surprisingly interesting. I found myself challenged by the AI. Right. Occasionally, I was like, well, what am I going to do here? You know, how am I going to react to this situation? How am I going to get through? Or like, what's the right choice? I don't, because the AI has that unpredictability, right? But also you kind of know certain things. So you can sort of read it based on the rules and how it's designed. And this is true for all the ones I looked at, right? So you know it's going to go in kind of a certain direction, but it can skew and do something unexpected. So it's surprisingly fun. I thought it would be a tedious thing, but I knew there was demand for it, so I was determined to drag myself through it. but it was actually enjoyable at the end of it. So it might be something. I don't know if it's going to be something I'm going to do on a regular basis, but it's definitely opened my mind to it for sure.
Well, it was going to be my next question. With you doing it for Blood and Plunder, I know you have the other games out there. So you've got Blood and Valor, you've got your Oak and Iron, you've got Scurvy Dice. I was wondering, would there be solo rules for those in the future, possibly?
Possibly, yeah. I think Oak and Iron's a little challenging because of the momentum that you have on ships, right? At least to me initially. I haven't really tried to think about it too much. I've got too much on my plate right now, really, to try to think about an Oak and Iron. So instead of solo for Oak and Iron, we've put it on Tabletop Simulator. So
yeah, I am trying to pin you down to actually get a game against you because I absolutely love that game.
Good, I'm glad. Yeah, so we're actually running right now via the Oak and Iron Gamers group on Facebook. We're running a online campaign. So we're kind of play testing our campaign rules that Nate Zettel has been working on. And so far so good. We're in the second week, and I've lost my first game badly, unfortunately. I lost my flagship, which is problematic. But anyway, this is about solo gaming. So I just plugged the online campaign. So if you're interested in participating in that, you could join anytime. It's on our Facebook Open Iron Gamers group. And it's
tell you what, fire me a link through. I'll make sure there's one in the show notes.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, so how about, have you been doing any solo gaming, Justin?
Honestly, yeah. For me, solo gaming is always best for like campaign gaming is the way I normally play it. So if I was going to play something solo, I think my go-to has to be something like Kingdom Death Monster because it's something that even if friends want to join in later, it's a cooperative experience where they can just dive in and start playing with me. I haven't ever really done just like one-off battle solo gaming, so I'm very curious to see how that plays out and how I engage with that.
Right. Yeah. That's a good point, actually, is that I think it's definitely more geared toward those sorts of things, right? Like I know I have Dungeon Saga, which I have the expansion that has all the solo gaming. I haven't actually tried it. But that seems like the kind of game that's really more geared toward that. So in these desperate times, we've and I know there's a lot of people who do like more traditional hex and shit sort of wargaming, and I know the solo gaming in that realm is pretty popular. So I don't think it's quite right to say it's out of place for wargaming, but I think the competitive nature of miniature wargaming specifically with the scenery elements and all the stuff involved, and it's kind of a little bit of a showcase. Your painted armies, the model, the scenery, and of course the social aspect is I think a big draw for a lot of people. Like for me, I know that the social aspect, being able to smack talk loses a lot of its fun when it's me just smack talking against myself. So.
Okay, that means if you've got AI cards, you need to put smack talk on the bottom of it so that your deck can insult you.
That is a genius. I have.
Now, honestly, for this kind of gaming, I'm thinking this could be a real tactical challenge for folks, because sometimes I find AI can be a much more difficult opponent to play against than a flesh and blood opponent, because if you're smack talking back and forth, you can sort of distract your opponent a little bit from objectives or from something that you're trying to move up into a really strong position. AI, you don't really have that. It is like laser focused on what it is meant to do.
Exactly. Yeah, no. And it does make it pretty challenging. The first
I like
time
that.
I got crushed, I was like, wow, this is a little too intense. Maybe I need to tone it down. So, I mean,
it's an interesting balance to find, because I've found it, if I beat a really hard AI, I feel really good, because it's just like, yes, that was so tough, but I did it, and I'm a better gamer for it. So it can be used as a good training mechanism for when the whole apocalypse ends.
Oh, definitely, yeah. It'll help you focus on solid tactics. That's probably why I keep losing in solo games, because 99% of my tactical prowess is just talking smack to my opponent. So without that, the AI is completely immune to it, unfortunately. So.
Now, for Blood and Plunder, what way are you actually engineering your AI? Is it running from the deck of cards for activations, and then how does that tell you, how a unit's going to act on the field?
Right. So the way it'll work. If you're familiar with Blood and Plunder, we use a regular sort of poker deck, right? So you've got the suits and the numbers on the cards. And normally what that'll do when you're activating a unit is the higher the suit, the faster your initiative, but the less actions your unit will get based on their trade. Right?
Yep.
So with the AI, we kept that same mechanic. So the amount of actions and the initiative is determined the same way. The big difference is that the suit and the card number really more just a card number. So we just number them 1 through 13. So an ace is a 1, a jack is an 11, queen is a 12, king 13.
Yep.
So based on how many strike points you or your opponents have, which if you're familiar with Blood and Plunder, strike points are like the opposite of victory points, right? If you have a lot of strike points, you have to do morale checks to see if your army breaks. So if the AI is winning, it'll play a little more aggressive, right? If it's a tie, it'll kind of gauge itself a little. And then if it's losing, it'll play a little more defensive, right? So that's the first check. So from there, if you check if you're winning or losing, which is usually pretty obvious. Yep. And then from there, based on the card, you just draw one. So instead of drawing a hand, obviously the AI doesn't need a hand, so you just draw one card from the AI deck. And then whatever the suit is how many actions it'll get. And then the height, so the higher the number on the card, the more sort of aggressive it'll be, and the lower the number on the card, the less aggressive, right? And so there's like a little chart. If you want to have, I can pop in real quick and kind of share that.
Yeah, fire away, buddy.
All right, so So as I told you earlier, this is my first time using Zoom, so bear with me. There we go. Does that work?
Yep, that is up and working.
Okay, so here we go. So here's the chart for. Can you see my mouse? Does that work?
Yep, we can see it.
So you can see here the card value, right? Will tell you which chart to use. So if you have less strike points, you're going to use A, B, or C, right? So if the AI is winning, it has less strike points. Op 4 is the AI, so the opposing force. If it has less strike points than you do, and you get a high card value, you're going to draw from A, right? So if you look over there, so A, and these are the action priorities. So you start with shoot within 12 inches. If there's ships involved, you'll grapple. 3 is charge action. So once you hit one action, you stop on this list and you start over, right? And then from there, that's it. And then you determine which actions based on the units that are closest and most threatened and stuff like that. So there's kind of just like a really jump out of this. Okay. There's kind of just like a really sort of intuitive system to decide which units which, and then if there's kind of if it's questionable, just do a quick roll off in the hand. Mm-hmm. So I tried to make it as unintrusive as possible, so you're not constantly sitting there thinking what the AI has to do or mm-hmm. checking 100 things, right? It's just card draw, check the 2 charts, and that's it. You just kind of move on from there. And it runs surprisingly well. It's weird to play against it, almost.
Well, it sounds as if it's very straightforward to figure out what you're up to, because it's just determine what shape the battle's in, and if the opponent's winning, and I mean, like an opponent could be overconfident, so yeah, go for that aggressive move, run out into the middle of nowhere, and maybe take a shot. But right. all of a sudden, you're exposed for the next round. So it does sound as if the AI isn't just going to constantly move up and crush you. It sounds as if it can make tactical errors, which is interesting.
Yeah, it can. It can also make some surprisingly sound tactical choices. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of a mix of both. And it will. So in the rules, it'll say, it will move when it advances. It will always advance through cover if mm-hmm. possible. Right. Yeah. And now there's some instances where it won't. Now it won't. And then if you're only on the aggressive end, will it actually do that? So you don't know. So you don't know if it's going to draw a high card or a low card. If it draws a lower card, it won't necessarily do that advanced move. Mm-hmm. And based on which unit you've just activated, will determine which unit it activates. Mm-hmm. Right. So you can't really predict too much what it's going to do. You can kind of get an idea, so you can gauge it the same way you'd gauge an opponent who's reasonably competent. Right. So it's mm-hmm. kind of a similar way.
Yeah, I like this idea that there's sort of a common sense mechanic built into the AI as well.
Yeah.
So it's
to be, otherwise it just gets too technical and tedious. I think mm-hmm. some of the better ones that I looked at tended to go in that direction, right? Like obviously this wouldn't make any sense to do, so don't do it.
Yeah, and if it's a tie-up between 2 units on the opponent's side activating, I would always ask myself, what's the more awesome thing for it to do? What would be the more tactically sound thing if it was me playing it? So I kind of give myself a harder time when I'm playing these games.
Right. That's one of the kind of fun, creative aspects of solo gaming, right? Is you don't have to think for both sides, but you can kind of make those little choices here or there to maybe challenge yourself a little more and say, oh, this would maybe be the more solid move. And there's no reason, nobody's going to get mad at you if you tweak something, you're playing by yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, and then it's also sometimes you'll have the cinematic things happening. So, what's the coolest thing that it could do right here? I think it would actually try and grapple my ship here and try and board me right now.
Exactly. And you have to be wary of that. And it really is surprisingly fun to play. Mm. I was like I said, I have a very bad record against the AI so far. Mm-hmm. And exactly how bad.
And for armor building and all of that, I assume it's exact same rules as normal Blood and Plunder?
Exact same rules, yeah. And like you mentioned with campaign gaming, we have the campaign and no piece beyond the line. You could totally tie that in. Mm-hmm. There's no reason you couldn't. In fact, it's probably a good way to run through the campaign if you're interested in playing it. Get a feel for it, see how it works, and then you can get other people involved when the apocalypse ends. So.
Well, what I would actually use it for, and it's something a lot of people wouldn't think to use it for, is the way whenever you're playing a campaign, there's always that one person who either can't make it every week or drops out.
Yeah.
If they can't make it or play that week, AI.
Yeah, that's actually
the AI plays their game.
Actually, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, that kind of solves that problem.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, how many times have you seen it? People jump into a campaign and they burn out, or they life gets in the way. Life happens.
Yeah. Campaigns are very difficult to maintain, especially long term. Mm-hmm. I think the most successful campaign we've ever run for anything has lasted maybe a month. So
mm-hmm. It also means that you can feedback the results to that person who maybe couldn't make it that week, and they haven't lost a week of gaming.
Now, of course, you got to trust them to not. Hey, look at that! I totally crushed this opponent and got maximum points. How convenient.
Well, true, but I mean, like, if you're doing that's kind of cheating the system. I mean, when you do that, you're only cheating yourself. We play games to have fun, not to a big massive treasure.
No problem.
Oh yeah.
Everybody's figured it out by now with all this. So.
Well, it's actually quite interesting to see the way some folks are doing online gaming now, to actually bring games out to folks. I mean, like, the way I see it, I've been able to manage 2 ways of doing online gaming. One is obviously Tabletop Simulator. It works absolutely great. We've done a couple of Let's Plays for it now. I quite like how it works, but it slows everything down a little bit. The other way is one where I actually had the physical game in front of me, a person on a screen like yourself, making tactical choices, and me just moving the stuff around on the table for them. So I became the hands, but they were still the brain. So I still had that real nice feeling of physically playing against someone, even though they weren't there in person.
Yeah, I could see that working, especially for any kind of game with a grid or a board game or something like that. I've seen people do it with wargaming. It seems like it worked for them. I haven't tried it personally yet, but it seems like, especially with a lot of the games where movement is more critical, like small little angles and adjustments are more important, like any kind of rank and file game or naval game.
Oh yeah,
I can see it being a little tricky. You gotta kind of play a little. You can't be excessively competitive in those situations. Even
you're playing a little looser.
Yeah, even on Tabletop Simulator, really. I mean, because it is a really cool tool. Sometimes when you're playing Tabletop Simulator, it's really fun, and you kind of forget yourself into it, right? You do get really immersed into it when you're playing, but then you've looked and you've been playing for like 3 hours, a game that's normally an hour.
Yeah, I think the first Let's Play we did took 5 hours to film.
Yeah, and that would probably normally take half the amount of time, right? So,
far less, far less.
Exactly. Yeah, we've been having in our Oak and Iron campaign. We had one game last 5 hours, which is typically an hour-long game. So 5 times, but still, really, even despite that, even though sometimes people have to leave because not everybody has 5 hours to sit and play a game, even in these times. But despite that, nobody's really complained about it, right? Like it's people say, it doesn't feel. You kind of almost can't believe how long it's been. Like my game, I think took almost 3 hours, and I was playing against Sean Martin, who's a guy that we know each other, so we weren't being super strict with movement or anything. We're just kind of plopping stuff more or less in the right place, and that helped it along, obviously.
Yeah, just having fun with it.
Exactly. So, which is the only reason I lost. I'm going to throw that out there. But anyway, but still, I was shocked. My wife was like, "Hey, how long are you going to be?" I was like, "I should be here like an hour and a half." And the next thing I know, it was like 10 o'clock at night. She's like, "How are you?"
Well, no, I actually remember Warren once talked on a Weekender about his first experience of World of Warcraft. So he got World of Warcraft when it just came out, sat down, he'd put his 30 days on, sat down, started killing sheep. Okay, this is kind of fun, killing sheep, doing quests, this is good, I'm enjoying this. Looks up, he'd been playing for 10 hours. And he was just like, okay, I have to put that down.
Yeah, that could happen.
Yeah. But I am very curious to see how this is all going to come together for the solo play in general, because I think it's something we're going to see a lot more of, is people diving into solo play versions of their games.
Yeah, I think so.
And from the sound of it, this sounds like a nice one.
Yeah, and I think it's going to open. I think this whole situation is going to open people's minds to it a little more. It certainly has for me, because it's something I would not have considered otherwise, honestly, with the exception of the need to playtest stuff when I don't have an opponent, right? So for work reasons, right? But but really doing it this way with an actual AI, it's something I could see myself doing, especially here in like South Florida. If I'm stuck at home after for a week or two after a hurricane or something, I could definitely see myself doing this. Or even like if I'm just home alone and bored, which is rare, but in that event I could see myself doing it. Trying it, just doing a solo game, running through it. I'm going to. There's a couple out there that I'm interested in and check out.
There's another thing it does as well that you might not have thought of. One of the things I find with a lot of wargaming is people have a faction that they love, that they dive into, and they live within that nice little faction box for their entire gaming life within a game. This unlocks the possibility of them going, well, I know I've been playing the English, but I've been kind of looking at those pirates and wondering if they're interesting. And it lets them pick them up, have the fun of building, painting, playing with them, learning the tactics, and actually maybe exploring it and maybe actually changing to a different faction.
Yeah, and I was going to say too, even if I finish painting something, I often like, cool, I'm done now. I want to immediately play with these just painted, right? I don't know if you get. I'm sure everybody feels very similar. So you just kind of want to marvel at what you got, right? So what better way? Just throw it on the table, play a quick, AI generated match. Just throw like a small game, 100 points in Blood and Plunder, for example, and just try them out, see them on the table, take some cool pictures with some actual cinematics of what's happening in the battle, and that's it's just adding to the way we can enjoy the hobby and do things,
Yeah, and another thing is, say after Apocalypse is over, and say you've been to a Blood and Plunder tournament and you've got a bad beat at the tournament, say a list came up and just absolutely hammered you. It would be interesting to maybe set up that list at home and play a couple more games against it to actually maybe learn its flaws a little better.
Yeah, that's actually absolutely true. Yeah, for sure. I could definitely see using as a competitive training sort of tool.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely, yeah. You can kind of see where its strength and weakness. You can even do the reverse. Play it against your own list and see it from that perspective.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then you can kind of know how you'd play the other list, so you can kind of tweak the AI that way.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a good, for sure. Definitely for those hardcore tournament players, it's definitely solid.
It gives you a guaranteed opponent that you know is at a certain level of competence. You know, because sometimes you go to a tournament, round one, you get a bunny.
Yeah.
And you get a bunny, and it's just going to be beat down, beat down, beat down. And, you know, for that player as well, if you have that's a competent opponent that's constantly going to play on the same level against you, it's very good for actually bringing your level up to a tournament level.
Yeah, definitely. That's a very good observation. I had not thought of that, but you're right, yeah.
This is my brain. It works different. Well, Mike, it's fabulous hearing about this. When and how can people lay their hands on this, then, is the next big question.
All right, so they can lay their hands on it right now. Just go to the download section. So firelockgames.com/downloads, or I think it's actually DLC. Yeah, downloads is the old page. I got to fix that. So /DLC. Or you just firelockgames.com and click downloads, just in case I'm wrong.
I will link it in the show notes.
Okay, thank you. So you go there and just look for the Solitaire rules. That's the name of the file, and it's free. Download it, try it out. It is technically in a beta right now, since the only playtesting. I was obviously in a hurry to get this out because people are stuck at home, so I just kind of did a first draft, did a few run-throughs myself, and put it out, and it works well. So far, so good. So, you know, feel free to send us feedback on how we can improve it, maybe things that we can make it a little better. But it seems to be working well so far. Haven't had any suggestions on changing it yet, and quite a few people have been playing with it. So
that's good.
But we'll leave it open. It'll be a living document, and we'll just adjust it as need be. But you could go there and check it out. You can also get the we also have all the PDFs for all of our games online right now. So if you just have a bunch of miniatures or just plastic pirate figures or something and just want to try the game out with the Solitaire rules, you could download the rulebook on there and everything as well. Oak and Iron rules are always free. They're there as well. The campaign rules for Oak and Iron are also free on there. And if you want to join, again, the Facebook page. And I think that about covers it.
All right, now, is there anything coming up in the near future? Because I've got something on my screen here. I'm not sure if we're allowed to talk about it yet, but I do know you guys are possibly doing a Kickstarter in the near future.
That's right. Yes. So right now it looks like July 7th. We've got those dates locked in with you guys. So I'm hoping it's, unless everything is uncertain right now. So I always say tentatively July 7th, but July 7th is looking pretty good right now. That is for our next Blood and Plunder expansion, which will be all hard plastic. So we got the 2-player starter set. We're moving the timeline into the 18th century. So we've got a lot of the more famous pirates like Blackbeard, Anne Bonny, Mary Read, Jack Rackham, Charles Vane, all those famous guys that everybody knows now from Black Sails. Those will all be in there, and multi-part plastic kits with lots of options and things like that. So I'm excited. We've been working on it for a really long time. Perfecting the process, trying to get the plastic models exactly right, trying to up our quality, just to make improvements where we can and things like that, you know. So, so I'm looking forward to finally getting it out there and really getting the ball rolling on it. So.
Fantastic. Well, I mean, like you know where to find us if you want to actually show off maybe some early renders, some prototyping, whatever it rolls in. Because I mean, like I'm
like crazy right now. So we're gonna send you guys some stuff to paint. We got some stuff that we're getting our painters looking at. We've got the very excellent James Whippel. We've sent him some models to paint, as well as our regular painter Rufus, and Nate Zettel, and everybody else. So they're all contributing and getting some stuff done and sent over to us. So pretty soon you're going to start to see a lot of imagery and a lot of things coming out of there. So the first we got the commanders. We've got Blackbeard and how can I be forgetting his name? The guy who's not Blackbeard. I got Lieutenant Maynard. There we go. So we got those two that we've showed quite a bit. We've showed a little bit previews of the work in progress of the sailors. Those are more finalized. Those are pretty much completely finalized now. So we've got those. And now we've also got the 18th century uniformed regular troops. So the guys with the tricorn hats and bayonets and everything else that everybody likes. So That's all coming. So those are your, kind of your stereotypical Marines. They work for that, or regulars, land troops, and grenadiers will have the different head options for all that. So lots of really cool, exciting stuff coming. So
yeah, so definitely watch this space.
What's that?
So definitely watch this space for big things coming from Firelock Games in the near future.
For sure, yes, lots of exciting stuff coming.
Awesome.
Coming very quickly in the next few weeks. So.
Yeah. All right. Well, Mike, it's always a pleasure to get sat down and chat with you. Stay safe out there, buddy. Everybody, I tell you what, if you have questions about solo gaming for Blood and Plunder, drop it in the comments below. If you're curious about what's coming for the next expansion for Blood and Plunder, watch this space. And let us know what you think. Myself and Michael move on here. Everybody, stay safe yourselves, and we'll see you again soon.
It's giveaway time, Ben, because 3D printing is totally the shit.
It is, yes. So obviously at the start of the show we talked about this as well, and we had a little bit of a preview of the guys as well. But 3D Art Digital are running a Kickstarter right now, which we'll look at in a second. But the model that we're giving away as part of the show this week is Gorntak, who is a rather awesome-looking orc, half-orc monk that I want to say. And the thing that I really like about this guy is that he epitomizes everything I like about doing a slightly atypical character. You've got the sort of traditional barbaric-looking orc that you would imagine to be touting around a massive axe or a sword covered in furs. But instead they've gone for the cool sort of like more monk look to him. And you know that this guy could kick your ass with that bit of wood compared to any other weapon. So yes, really fantastic-looking miniature. And yes, you can download that from our little web store and get yourself a very exclusive version of it as well. So as you can see, here's some of the previous stuff that we've got up right now. The file will be there when this show goes live. But yes, we've got some really interesting kit there from a bunch of different companies. But yes, 3D Art Digital throw the model into the ring this week. And as I was saying, it's all connected to their Kickstarter. So they have a Kickstarter right now called Survivors of Serath, and it is, in their own words, the biggest Kickstarter they have ever done. And as you can see by the people that have backed it anyway as well. This is a selection of 3D printable miniatures. So they're all provided as STL files, and they are for characters, monsters, terrain, accessories, more characters, more monsters, more terrain. Everything that you could think of has been included in this collection. As you can see here, some of the examples of some of the different characters and stuff. A lot of their stuff has been done so that it can be printed without supports as well. That was one of the stretch goals they've been looking at for this campaign. So have a look at the files and see how things have all sort of been tweaked and changed throughout their updates and comments and stuff, because they have been talking about how the best way to print a lot of this stuff is. As you can see, it's coming out on FDM printers and a whole bunch of other stuff as well. I think this is a perfect reservoir of sort of ideas for you to use when creating your next role-playing characters. Because they've got so many interesting and fascinating ideas in here that you could use for that. You've got loads of really cool ideas for heroes. Oh,
you just like because there's a... Oh, I thought it was a badger. Is it a hamster?
No, that's Lord Hammerstripe, the badger. God.
Oh, Hammerstripe. I thought it said hamster.
Lord Hamster Stripe, yeah. But no, absolutely amazing looking miniatures. They're all very different as well, because they've obviously got a lot of stuff in here that is for sort of fantasy wargaming and fantasy role playing and that kind of thing. But there's also some more steampunk stuff in there. So you've got number 30.
I like this.
37. God damn it!
Yeah. Clockwork golems are always good in D&D though.
He's really cool. He reminds me a bit of that. I know it's like a creature, but he reminds me a bit of that creature in The Shape of Water? That Fishman dude. I don't know why, he just does.
It's also got a lot of like the Iron Giant around him and stuff. I think it's really cool. Wait until you see one of the steampunk things I've got later on down on this page as well. Very cool. But yeah, some really awesome casters and monsters and all sorts of things. He's one of my favorite there. I really like Heldross. I think he's a really awesome little character. But if we scroll down through the characters and get further down, the Giant. Amazing.
Wow.
You know there's that D&D campaign book for the Giants and stuff.
Yeah, for the Frost Giant.
Storm King's Thunder. Use that guy in that. Perfect. So
that's incredible.
This is the cool stuff. So as well, obviously the miniatures are cool, but as well as all the miniatures and heroes and characters, they've also got this amazing set of terrain as well. So if you want to build yourself a really badass, sort of slightly Warcrafty orc style terrain settlement on the tabletop, you've got some awesome options here. So yeah, some really awesome looking terrain there, as you can see.
Oh, this is amazing stuff.
Yeah, and it's not just the big pieces, scatter terrain and everything as well, which is really good. So yeah, some really nice stuff on that front. So it helps you build like a world up and everything, which I think is really nice. And then obviously you've got lots of the stretch goals and all that kind of thing. But hopefully we can scroll down and see even more stuff. So here we go, stretch goals. So a lot of this stuff was easily broken right away. And again, it kind of looks in towards a little bit more of a different sort of angle of things. So obviously you've got a little bit more sort of like weirder, pulpy stuff going on in the background, which I think is really cool. Puffnathrax is a teaser for earlier on, so just wait until you see more stuff for later on. Sorry, so that's just something to do with Puffnathrax. But as we go down, you'll hopefully see more of it.
So we've unlocked pre-supported now. The model that we're giving away this week comes a version pre-supported as well. Yes. So for you guys who are using your Elegoo's or your Anycubic Photons, you have a nice pre-supported version there. You can just drop directly on your build plate.
Yeah. Lots of stuff that would be good for sort of scenario and narrative style things. So things like the ancestral totems and stuff.
I think I could bring that up for you. We
can actually bring up the file that we have, I believe.
Is this what you're talking about here, one?
That's exactly it. So, and it's always good to see the designers doing the pre-support. This is something we asked for some weeks ago, and now they're all doing it. Yes, because they, through their testing, will know which parts of the miniature require the support and how to apply the supports so that you do the least amount of kind of not damage to the miniature, but you want your supports to be in places that are easily cleaned and easily hidden.
And also, it reduces that whole trial and error part and saves you material costs.
It will. So back to the stretch goals.
Yeah, so as I was saying, they've got some really nice narrative and sort of scenario-based stuff in it. So things like the totems could be really cool. The sort of things you need to like control and take command of on the battlefield and that kind of thing. Again, more heroes that have got really nice sort of fluff and background to them to help you inspire sort of D&D characters and stuff going forward, which I think is really good.
Man, just as well they're doing pre-supports.
Well, exactly, with stuff like that, yeah.
Cool,
again,
scattered rocks,
more scatter terrain and all that kind of thing. Hopefully we'll get to Puffnathrax thing because he is my favourite.
What is this Puffnathrax?
Keep going. Keep going.
Keep going, Lloyd. Keep going. Keep going.
Is it a monkey?
Keep on going.
No, look at that tower.
That tower's cool.
That tower is cool.
Yeah, keep going, Lloyd. Keep going. Yeah. Keep going.
There we go.
Oh my word!
There we
Clockwork
go.
Dragon.
Yeah. So at the time, obviously that's not been funded, but that is a massive steampunky, crazy dragon with rocket-powered wings and buzzsaws and claws and all sorts. So if you got that printed, did it up in some nice dry brushing with a bit of shade and everything on top of it, I think that would be absolutely fantastic.
So, Lloyd, scroll down to see. Oh, what's the jump in point on this Kickstarter? So keep going. What have you got? So
$35 to get the sort of basic stuff, and then $65 for even. $67
was your early bird.
$85.
$85. Yeah.
So $85 gets you the core set, the terrain, and then all of the relevant stretch goals, which is pretty good. So,
that's incredible. And obviously there's the lair for the creature and everything like that as well. Wow.
So combine that with a mat or something, or a larger piece of terrain or something, and you've got a really nice looking set there too, which is really good. It is one of those Kickstarter campaigns where the more you scroll through it and see things, you're like, oh, that's cool. Oh, that's cool. Oh, that's cool.
It is very Warcrafty, isn't it?
It is. Yes. Yeah.
Oh, I love this. I want that clockwork dragon. I think that's like the coolest thing I've ever seen. Yeah. I want that clockwork dragon.
I'm never going to get tired of saying the name Puffnathrax either. So
there's loads of stretch goals for this.
No, Puff the Magic Dragon is stuck in my head. Thank you.
This is just incredible.
Yeah.
Right. 15 days left for the Survivors of Serath Kickstarter. Guys, I think it's an obvious one. an absolute obvious one to jump into.
Yeah.
And if you want to see just what it's like, head across to store.ontabletop.com. The link is in the show notes for that Gorn tack. Well worth checking out. Right, Ben, going to throw us another couple of Kickstarters. What else is going on out there?
Okay, so next up on the Kickstarters, we've got another campaign that is all about 3D printing. Don't worry, there'll be some stuff for traditional miniatures afterwards. But
wait, while you're on the topic of 3D printing, let me do a teaser. Let me do a very quick teaser, okay? So, I designed and printed this. Okay,
it's a sweet dispenser.
So, I'm doing it as a little bit of a teaser to get you to come over and join the Cult of Games, you see, right? So if you join the Cult of Games, which are literally a cult, it is a proper cult, and we have the coolest cultists in the world.
Because all YouTube distribution.
Because all of our cultists keep OnTableTop running, okay? So come across, you can even do a free trial. Create an account, you get a free trial. But if you come across on Sunday, I'm going to be talking about the hows and the whys of why I created this. Okay? And it's something that every hobbyist will probably love.
Is it a Tic Tac dispenser?
No.
It's a wedge to keep the door shut so you can hobby in peace.
No.
Is it some sort of CD holder?
No.
Too thick for CDs.
But a CD book designed it. So come across on Sunday, and all will be revealed. Okay, right. Bloodfields.
Anyway, yes. So Bloodfields is the name of the new 3D printable range and war game from Titan Forge Games. So a lot of people will know Titan Forge have been working in the industry for many, many years now. And quite recently, they went onto Patreon to fund the production of a bunch of 3D miniatures every month. So you get a package of miniatures for subscribing to them and that you can print off at home. They've now taken to Kickstarter with Bloodfields here, which is their entirely 3D printable war game. The core set comes with the sort of elves, humans, and orcs, as you can see there, as well as the terrain, and all the accessories you need. So rulers, markers, objective things, all that kind of thing. All the accessories you need to play the game are effectively within that core pledge. They've then taken it a next step further and included more terrain sets, more scenario sets. A lot of their previously designed and released through Patreon warbands have also been included as part of the sort of add-ons and stretch goals for this as well. So if you want to pick up something that's a little bit different, you've got those options too.
Different is right. Look, there's a goblin molesting a dolphin. That is different. You don't see that every day.
That's a swordfish, Lloyd. Be careful,
it's a swordfish.
But yeah, so they've basically taken the premise of creating an entirely 3D printable war game and included it as part of this Kickstarter campaign. The game itself is very simple and easy to play. It's all done through the use of cards, actions, and abilities and that kind of thing, and the spending of sort of action tokens to kind of either let your entire warband act or your entire set of heroes act, or one individual act multiple times to give them like a kind of heroic, like charge into battle kind of thing. It's all then supported by the use of a web app. You don't need the web app to play, but it's also sort of there on the sidelines, which has all the details in it. They have sort of like an 8-point sort of quick rundown of how the rules play. But then they've also got the video there, which goes into a little bit more depth about how it all works. Because obviously a lot of the sort of core rules for it are very simple and easy to pick up, but then there's a lot more depth when it comes to the actual card play and stuff. And as I say, there's no reason that you couldn't use other miniatures for these, or use these rule sets to play with other miniatures as well if you wanted to as well, which is really cool. But they've gone into a lot of effort to create some really interesting looking and nice diverse graphics packs for all the different characters in the cards.
If this is self-printing, do you then print your own cards and things as well? Is that part of it?
You can print your own cards off and use them on the tabletop, or you can use the web app depending on what you want to do. So you can either get the files and use those, or you can just use the phone to do everything on there. Because it's all done through the use of like the cards having all the rules and then you spending tokens. You can just keep referring to that a little bit like people used to do with, and still do now, with War Machine and Hordes and that kind of thing as well. But yeah, as I was saying, one of the other big things for them as well is that they've been adding in a lot of their warbands from the Patreon that are sort of 3D prints for models that they did work on back in the day in a sort of the more traditional format, but they've sort of updated and tweaked as well. Like they've done some really cool stuff for like ogre pirates, which are really awesome. There's the Eastern Kingdoms, which is a whole bunch of really awesome stuff to do with sort of like Japanese and Chinese mythology. And they've done like the abyssal forces as well, which is really cool. And yeah, as you can see, some really nice prints there as well, showing off what it all looks like when it hits the table, because that's one of the important things. So it's nice to see the sort of end product as well as what you're getting when it comes to 3D printing. Obviously, things will change depending on the printer you have and your experience with it, but this gives you a good idea. Anyway.
Yeah,
so,
I'm really digging this. I am really digging this, because the one thing is you could print these out and rescale them. So
yeah, you could do that.
You don't necessarily have to
can
print
shrink them
them
down to your 15 mil if you really wanted to. So.
Yeah, you absolutely could. You absolutely could. Once again, these guys are delivering stuff pre-supported as well, so less hassle. You just drop a bunch of them onto your print bed. Boom. Half a warband could be printed in about 6 hours or so. It's really, really cool stuff. I'm very taken by this model of digital delivery. I think it has a lot of potential to it.
And as I say, they've got the Patreon as well. So every month you can sign up and donate a certain amount of money.
I have friends in on that Patreon, and they are loving it. Absolutely loving it. Yeah. Right. You have something more real worldy for us now, yeah?
Yeah, so for those of you that enjoy your Hero Quest and your Warhammer Quest and those sort of like classic dungeon delving adventures, there is another Kickstarter from El Kraken Released, which is a fancy name to begin with. And this is Classic Quest. So Classic Quest is a new 2 to 5 player dungeon crawling game by a Spanish company who have worked on a bunch of historical miniatures in the past, and they've sort of taken their sort of skills and turned it to this sort of dungeon delving adventure that is very harking back to that kind of period of classic old school adventure on the tabletop. All the miniatures that you're seeing there are all going to be sort of one-piece metal miniatures.
Oh yes!
So very little gluing as a whole in the entirety, but might be some for some of the bigger creatures, but for the vast majority of the models within this, it's all going to be one piece metal miniatures that you'll be able to get in your hands and hold them and feel.
It's going to feel quality, yeah. This is proper old school. This is
proper old school. And the game actually has a couple of interesting quirks to it. So obviously, it's a old school classic dungeon delver. You'll set up your team of adventurers. You'll randomly generate a dungeon, thanks to the game's mechanics and rules. You'll play through that, sort of defeating evil monsters, killing things, stealing loot, and all that kind of thing. And then you'll be able to take them forward into a campaign between different miniatures, upgrade your characters, do different things with them, stat them out how you want to stat them out, and take them forward into your further quests. The other cool thing about this as well is that unlike some of those games in the past, it doesn't need a GM or a DM or someone playing the Overlord. Because cooperative games are always much better when they're fully cooperative and not against the one. So they've come up with a really cool sort of like inbuilt AI system for the decks, where the monsters each have their own behavior patterns, and they'll follow those and do what they will to try and thwart your adventurers on their quest to find loot and kill monsters, which is what everybody wants to be doing on the table.
It's all about the murder hobos.
It is all about the murder hobos. Really interesting looking Kickstarter. If you like the idea of sort of like old school retro dungeon delving, this is probably one to sort of crack out and have a look at. They've got some videos on the sort of like the premise of the game, and also the premise of building them, bringing the miniatures to life as well, and also showing off some painted and finished versions as well too. So some really interesting looking miniatures for a rather cool retro looking game.
Well, it clearly knows what it's called, being called Classic Quest.
Classic Quest, yes. What would you like to do? I would like to go on a Classic Quest, please.
It broke, don't fix it.
Exactly.
Love it.
Yeah.
Right, 17 days left of Classic Quest, guys. So if you fancy some proper heft, some beautiful metal models, get in there for the metal. Right, that wraps us up. Thank you so much, everybody. You can join us on Sunday morning when we will be there bright and early for XLBS. Other than that, stay safe, keep your family safe, and we will see you next week. Have a great week of gaming.
Go ahead and check out our other content on screen now. And while you're at it,
why not hit subscribe and remember to ding our dong. Go on, you know you want to click it. Go on.